It was a sunny Saturday afternoon when my friends and I decided to go on a hiking trip in the woods behind my house. We were all around 13 years old and looking for an adventure. The beginning of the hike was normal. We walked along a dirt path, crunching leaves under our shoes and chatting lightly. The sunlight streamed brightly between the trees and we could hear birds chirping. After about 15 minutes, we came across an old shack set back from the path. It looked run down with peeling paint, broken windows, and a sagging roof. We dared each other to go inside and explore. My friend Sam was the bravest, so he pushed open the creaky door and stepped in. "It's empty," he called out. We followed him into the dusty, abandoned shack. There was an old wooden table and chair in the corner, but nothing else. We peered up the narrow stairs leading to a second floor. "I bet no one has been here for years," said my friend Lucy. She ran her finger through the thick coating of dust on the table. We were about to leave when we heard a loud bang come from upstairs. We jumped. "What was that?" I whispered. Sam crept slowly up the stairs, which groaned under his weight. We held our breath as we waited. After a few moments, Sam came back down. "There's nothing there," he said with a shrug. We nervously laughed off the scare and left the shack to continue our hike. The path wound deeper into the dense woods. The trees became thicker, blocking out more sunlight. I started feeling like we were being watched. I spun around quickly, but only saw shadows dancing between the trees. Lucy grabbed my arm. "Did you hear that?" she asked. We stopped walking. There was a rustling in the bushes behind us. We pushed forward at a faster pace, eager to get out of this shadier part of the woods. But the rustling continued, sounding closer and more aggressive. It was definitely not the wind. We started running, panicking. The woods felt endless. No matter how fast we sprinted, we couldn't break free of the trees. Suddenly, Sam let out a yelp and fell forward. He scrambled back up, holding his ankle. "Something cut me," he said, wincing in pain. We examined his ankle, which had a thin, bloody scratch. The rustling was now surrounding us on all sides. "We know you're out there," I shouted into the trees, trying to sound brave. "Leave us alone." A chilling, inhuman laugh echoed through the woods. Lucy and I helped support Sam as we hobbled along. We had to get out of here. Up ahead, I spotted a small cabin-like structure. An old ranger station, I thought, hopefully. If we could just make it there, we could get help. We moved as fast as we could toward the building. The laughing continued, sounding more demented with each burst. I tried not to imagine what creature was making such a spine-chilling sound. Suddenly, the door of the cabin swung open. A wrinkled old man with wild eyes emerged, pointing a rifle right at us. Lucy shrieked. "Please help us," I begged. "Something is chasing us." The man's intense expression softened slightly. "Quick, get inside," he grunted. We rushed into the cabin, slamming the door shut behind us. The inside was cluttered but cozy. The man peered out the window cautiously before sitting down. "Thank you," I said breathlessly. "We got lost and something started chasing us." The old man nodded. "These woods aren't safe for you kids, especially not at night." He tended calmly to Sam's leg. "You're lucky I found you when I did." I looked out the window anxiously. "What was that thing?" The man shook his head. "Some mysteries are better left unsolved." He gave us flashlights for the hike back and drove us home in his truck. I was shaken but grateful to be back safely. We decided not to go into those woods again. No matter how curious I was, I knew there were some mysteries not meant to be explored. In the summer of '89, I was a Boy Scout leader, just 21 and enjoying the freedom. My girlfriend Samantha and I decided to lead a camping trip to Lake Starlight, nestled within the pine-dotted slopes of Northern California. Little did we know this trip would change us forever. We had set up camp by the placid blue lake, the chirping crickets setting a calm, peaceful mood. The scouts, barely in their teens, had tired themselves out with their exuberance and were fast asleep in their tents. Samantha and I were alone by the dying embers of the fire, whispering sweet nothings under a sky dotted with stars. A sudden noise made us stop, a low growl that seemed to reverberate from the woods. I thought it was a bear. Gathering a torch, I walked towards the sound, expecting to scare off some wild beast. Sam tagged along despite my protests, adamant that we were a team. We pushed through the dense undergrowth, guided by the sporadic sounds. It was quieter than before, save for the rustle of leaves under our feet and our anxious breaths. The full moon barely penetrated the thick canopy, adding an eerie glow to our path. Suddenly, we stumbled upon a clearing. What we saw made our blood run cold. A crude pentagram was etched into the dirt, encircled by what appeared to be small animal bones, and in the middle a dark, shadowy figure hunched over. The sight sent shivers down my spine. I could feel Samantha's hand tighten around my arm. Summoning up the courage, I stepped into the clearing, torch held high. The figure spun around, its eyes reflecting an uncanny light. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't even human. It was a grotesque creature, hunched and twisted with scales that glimmered in the torchlight. It had a mouth filled with sharp, bloody teeth, and the growl ... "ite" was more chilling up close. It lunged at us, swift despite its size. Sam and I sprinted back towards camp, screaming to wake the boys. Branches slashed at our faces, rocks tripped us up, but we ran, the guttural growls of the creature echoing behind us. Reaching camp, we ushered the terrified boys into the van. I fumbled with the keys, praying the creature wouldn't catch up. As the engine roared to life, the creature burst into the campsite, its terrifying figure illuminated by the van's headlights. I threw the vehicle into reverse, the tires crunching over gravel as I sped away. The creature gave chase, its claws gouging long furrows into the dirt. It was surprisingly fast, but started losing pace as we put distance between us. The sight of it standing in the middle of the road, growling, bathed in our taillights, is etched in my memory, a horrific memento of our encounter. We drove to the nearest ranger station, spilling our story to the skeptical officers. They agreed to check the site in the morning, but thought we had mistaken a bear for something more sinister. The next day, they called us, their tone entirely different. The campsite was in ruins, and they found the pentagram and the bones. They also discovered tracks, massive clawed footprints, unlike any creature known to inhabit the area. The officers never found the creature. The boys from the troop were too terrified to speak of that night. Samantha and I were different now, more guarded, less adventurous. We can't shake off the haunting image of that creature, its growls echoing in our nightmares. As I look back, the fear has faded but never entirely vanished. We were young, brave, and most importantly, lucky. Lucky to have escaped the jaws of the unknown, our lives intact. Every so often, when the wind howls at night, we huddle a little closer, reminded of the chilling summer night when we barely made it out alive. It was a sultry summer's evening in 2018. My old friend Aisha and I were vacationing at a secluded, creaky cabin built on the edge of a peaceful lake. An eerie stillness hung in the air, the kind that unsettles you even when the sun's still out. As dusk fell, we lit up a J, sipped on some aged bourbon, and relaxed on the weathered wooden porch overlooking the enigmatic lake. As we indulged, the moon took its position above, casting an ethereal glow across the seemingly endless expanse of water. In our minds, a serene tranquility was settling in, laced with the languid influence of smoke and alcohol. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a distinct, guttural sound. An enormous splash echoed from the heart of the lake. We both jolted upright, a primal sense of alertness cutting through our hazy calm. As we squinted into the darkness, we could make out the silhouette of a gigantic creature breaking the surface. This was no regular aquatic animal. The size alone was startling. An enormous serpentine body undulated above the water, while an elongated neck held a head that bore menacing eyes glowing in the moonlight. In its monstrous jaw, it held what looked like an adult moose, an impossibly large creature itself, appearing diminutive and helpless in the face of this unknown beast. The sight was surreal, shocking, a dreadful painting come to life. It was as if the ancient tales of a mythical monster we had laughed off earlier in the day were manifesting before our disbelieving eyes. Frozen in fear, we watched as the creature crunched the moose in a single horrifying bite. A sickening crunch resonated, followed by an eerily human-like grunt of satisfaction. The water churned ominously as the monster made a slow, deliberate turn, its luminous eyes fixed directly on us. Those eyes, they held an intelligence that I've never seen in a beast, a piercing, knowing look that seemed to say, "You're next." It was as if the creature was marking us, imprinting our faces into its predatory mind. Our hearts pounded in our chests like wild drums, each beat echoing the growing terror within. We were no longer observers in this dreadful spectacle, but active participants in the creature's feast. It was then that the cabin, our refuge, became our prison. We were trapped on this tiny island of humanity in a lake ruled by a monstrous, unseen predator. The monster held our gaze for what felt like an eternity before submerging back into the inky depths of the lake, taking with it our sense of safety. The aftermath was a deafening silence, broken only by our ragged breaths and the faint lapping of the water against the cabin's stilts. As the initial shock ebbed, we stumbled back into the cabin, bolting the door behind us. We sat in stunned silence, the memory of the monster's gaze still burning in our minds. The night outside was no longer beautiful, but held a sinister, terrifying secret. We didn't sleep that night. Every splash, every whisper of wind sent our hearts racing as we imagined the creature rising again from the dark water. We left at dawn, carrying with us the harrowing memory of the monstrous resident of Lake Bygone, forever imprinted on our minds. Now, when I think back to that night, a chilling sensation crawls up my spine. I look into the dark corners of my room, half expecting to see those glowing eyes, reminding me of the monstrous reality lurking beneath the tranquil surface of the world we think we know. I realize we aren't always the apex predator, and there are creatures out there, in the depths of lakes, forests, and maybe even cities, which gaze back at us with eyes full of knowing dread.